Harry Halfhorn.
Right. So what's wrong with Big?
Because he's just lazy. It's just a lazy ram.
Got one job, mate. One job.
That's exactly right. And this one's it's got horns, black horns, so you can't see them till you get right up close. Oh, so anyway, probably people don't really want to hear about my new ram.
Yes, they do.
Do you think they do?
I was loving it.
Oh, I've got it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a new addition to my flock. I've got a brand new Dorper ram. He's got a set of horns that have been docked. He's just on 12 months, and so I'm going to call him Harry Halfhorn, which has got nothing to do with Grenache whatsoever, which is what we're talking about today. So,
which is pretty choice. Pretty excited about that. I just had a little sneaky taste then of the wines. Woohoo!
Yep.
Exciting.
So what are we? Episode 3, Kate?
Yeah, season 2. How about that?
Season 2, episode 3, and we're going to be talking all about Grenache, folks. But for those of you who have watched before, of course, we're going to start. What was I drinking with? Where was I drinking? So tonight we're going to go to San Francisco, folks. We're going to go to Tommy's Tequila Bar. Now, for anybody that knows San Francisco, this is not the place downtown just above the Tenderloin that's got the big Tommy's painted on the wall. This is way, way out on Geary, out towards the beach. It's about 17 stops on the bus if you're taking the bus from Union Square. And it's a family restaurant, a Mexican restaurant that's been there since 1962. Very unassuming. It's got a little, well, you know you're in the right place because they've got a neon sign with the 2 just hanging down. And I've sent a lot of people there, and it just looks completely neighborhood Mexican restaurant, lots of tables, nothing special. But here's the hot news. Their lad Julio is Mr. Tequila for America.
Oh.
And he's got a bar in there that's got 211 100% agave tequilas, and he will do, if he's there when you happen to lob at the restaurant, he's got little kids jigsaw puzzle of Mexico that shows you where the agave fields are. He's got little laminated photographs that show you what an agave plant looks like when you cut it open to make tequila.
Yeah, nice.
And yes, and he will take you on a guided tour through the levels of tequila, which of course are silver, reposado, and anejo, which up until recently in Australia we just did not have.
No.
Everyone goes in there asking him, does he have Jose Cuervo? And he says, yes, I've got one bottle and I use it to hit people over the head if they get
when they ask for it.
He said, don't drink it. But he has a lovely style. Rumour has it, and this is unsubstantiated rumour, rumour has it that when Prince Charles was courting his most recent lady friend, they had a margarita party at the palace, and they flew Julio over to make him. So he is seriously, he's toured Australia as the representative for tequila to educate people, and I thank him every day that I drink tequila because he put me on to plata, which is Spanish for silver. And I like tequila really fresh, lifted.
Yeah.
This is Herradura, folks. Look for the upside down horseshoe. I cannot endorse this more. It's clean as a whistle and really lovely perfume, and it's almost got that succulent greenness to it. So today, where was I drinking? I was drinking at Tommy's Tequila Bar in San Francisco out on Geary, and Julio married a young lass from down near Oaxaca in southern Mexico, and they've got this. If you see this, ocho, which is Spanish for 8, this is the gear. So if you ever get a chance, track it down. And if you're ever in San Francisco, which the way COVID is going, for us is probably 18 months away, it is well worth it. Absolutely worth it. So where was I drinking? San Francisco.
I loved my time in the US because the tequila, how they drink tequila is so different to how we abominate it here. And it is a really beautiful drink just to sip on if you get, you want the good stuff. But it is a really lovely beverage. I really like it. In fact, I went and bought a bottle the other day. I just felt very tequila-y. Just to sip on, good quality. It's great.
I was lucky enough to be working in a couple of times in Albuquerque, in New Mexico, and around about, I'm guessing here, around about 3 hours drive south of Albuquerque in New Mexico is a little tiny village called Hatch, and they have fields and fields and fields of chilies.
Chilies, yeah.
Divided by massive stands of pecan trees that everything gets flood irrigated, and it's literally a cricket ball throw from the Rio Grande, the river. And it was a great opportunity in Albuquerque because they have green chili and red chili, and green chili is actually hotter than red. And when you go to Albuquerque, I went to the old town and knew nothing. And so the young chap there, young Mexican chap there said, well, if you don't mind, I'll show you how it works. And they have this gorgeous thing, which is like Navajo fry bread, and it's called sopapillas, which is like pillowcases made of dough. They throw it in the hot oil, corn oil, and it fluffs out, and you fill it with a squeezy bottle of honey, and you have your chili Christmas, half green, half red, which is what the locals have it. And the sting of the chili is softened by the honey, and then plata, silver tequila, iced, not slurry, not the soft drink one, cleans your palate off because you get the softness and sweetness of the honey, the heat and sting of the chili, and that lovely sluice, clean, green tequila, and the combination is quite extraordinary.
That's excellent. I love your retention for knowledge is mental. But
I remember what I like.
Yeah, well, that's most things. But I remember you wrote something for Barossa Roaming about chilies and Hatch as the area. And I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were talking about Hatch and chilies. And I was like, I know that. I remember. Jane told me that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all. But thanks, Jane. Let's go. And thanks, everyone, for joining us for episode 3, I think we just talked about. We have had so much amazing response from everyone over the 2 seasons now, and we just want to say thank you, I suppose. And if you do like what you're seeing or hearing, or even just if you don't hate it, please share it. The bar's pretty low for us, but please share it because we do this to help promote these great Australian wine brands, and the more people we can reach, the more people get to hear about it. So if you do like, or at least you just don't hate what you're hearing, please share it around to your folks. And I think you're really sophisticated that you're watching a wine show. So it's what we like to call a win-win.
A little tin pot wine show out of the Barossa Valley with really cool stuff on it. Really
cool visitors.
Yeah, not us.
No, we're not cool at all.
Today we got a treat because for anybody that knows anything about the history of the Australian wine industry, you know that right through 1890, 1915, the Barossa was called the Vineyard of the Empire. Most of what we made was fortified, and most of that was shipped back to the British Empire. And some of the great tawnies and rubies and ruby ports, tawny ports, we can't call them port now, but they were then. But some of the great tawnies and rubies were made with Grenache, Touriga, and Tinta and Tinta Madeira. And some of the great brandy chargers were made from Grenache. So today we actually have Grenache royalty.
Totally.
So it's really good because we've got the Italian flag flying over the Barossa Valley today with my compadre Marco Cirillo. And so he's got the oldest stand of Grenache possibly in the country. I like to think it is. It gets debated, but he's got the oldest 1850 stand of Grenache, and he's really, for my money, he's Mr. Grenache for Australia. So we get to talk about his 1850. He's kindly given us the top of the tree.
Yeah. And I think it's sold out now. I think it's all sold out, this vintage.
I think people put it on standby, Kate. I think you have to get in early and talk to Marco and say, listen, Can I get some of that? And the Vincent as well, the tribute to his dad.
Yeah.
And also, don't let me forget that the jungle drums in the Barossa are telling me that Marco's dad is Vince, and Marco's mum is Lena. The jungle drums are telling me that Lena makes the best limoncello in town. So
is that right?
Make sure we ask. We might have to taste that one, Kate.
I would be very interested in that. You've brought up a couple of things there, one of which is I've clearly been pronouncing it incorrectly. I say Cirillo.
So does he. I'm just trying to be
good.
a bit more. I'm just trying to be a bit more Italiano.
Right. You were just showing off your fancy Italian accent there, weren't you?
Yeah, because I've got veal parmigiana to go with it. And
Excellent.
every time I start talking with Italian names or veal parmigiana, I start to sound like Iona Torana, and I come from my brothers laugh at me because I sound like I'm like Wonka.
I love it. But I'm always super impressed by your Italian. If you could talk like that all the time, I'd be very happy.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is about the vineyards. So it is quite possibly the oldest Grenache vineyards, I think, even in the world, possibly. We'll get Marco to correct me on that, possibly. Yeah. And I think that's why this wine, you think about the value of wine and what it's worth. When you look at a wine like this, so that 1850 retails at $70, and to think that you can have a piece of history, this tiny parcel that only very few people get to have, $70 is not only are you getting an exceptional bottle of wine, but you're also getting exceptional bragging rights that you've got you've got a bottle of this really extraordinary wine that not many people are going to get to have.
And you've got a direct line back to pre-European phylloxera grapevines in the old world.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, this tiny little piece of dirt in the middle of the Barossa Valley is actually the custodian of old world Grenache for the world, technically.
Right. I mean, it's amazing. Yep. And, Marco is, as we like to say, the Mr. Grenache. But not only that, so Marco is joining us, but we also have a very special guest zooming in all the way from Sydney, our very good friend Angus Hughson, who is one of the best wine scribes in the country. I often will say to Angus, and I don't want to make his head really big before he hopefully will fit on the screen, but the way he writes about wine and the brand stories is so beautiful, and we're so lucky to have a talent like him in our industry advocating for these beautiful brands and these rich stories that we have that we can share. So we're very thrilled that he's going to be joining us, and he and Marco go way back, so it's a lovely combination. So that said, should we just bring him in? Zoom him in?
Yeah.
All right.
No, I've tasted them, and I really like. The Vincent is 2019, and the 1850 is 2013. But both of them look fresh. The 13 looks fresh as a daisy. The 19's like, I don't know, like kind of savoury toffee apples, and the 1850 is a wall.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous cherry sweet beets. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. Hi, Marco. Hi, Angus.
Hi. Sorry, I'm a bit slow with technology.
The Grenache
very well.
The Grenache Godfather. Here he is.
For those of us who don't know who's who, Marco, raise your hand.
Hi.
And then Angus.
Good
there
evening.
You go. Thanks, guys, for joining us. How are you both? You good?
Well, thank you.
Look, both of my children have been to the hospital for a COVID test today, so we're rocking it here in hotspot Sydney.
Oh God! Oh. So you'll be homebound for the next 2 days?
No. As long as I haven't told anyone, but
no.
But no, they're all fine. They're all healthy. They've got the sniffles. The schools are just a bit gun shy at the moment, so we are doing everything we need to do.
Of course you are. You've been very diligent, and we all respect and appreciate that.
We are.
Everyone's a little bit nervous.
Yes.
Everyone's a little bit nervous. But now, let's get into Grenache. That's what we want to talk about. Hey, Marco, I've been saying all sorts of stuff, but really we want you to tell the story.
Well, you've been saying lots of nice stuff, so thank you for pumping up my tyres.
Well, if it was
no worries, Mr. Grenache.
If it was pumping up your tyres, I'd say so. But here's the gritty bottom line. I've travelled extensively over the last probably 10 years with Grenache to the world, and it's really it's starting to set America on fire, especially with, you know, brisket and pastrami, corned beef, those sort of charcuterie. It's a largely unknown string to the bow here in the Barossa, but as soon as people meet it, they love it. Mm. And I talk about this gorgeous little spot in the valley because we don't have proper formal sub-regions in the valley, but we do talk about that sandbank over at Vinevale that you're on, and it's a particular piece of dirt. So I'd love it if you'd kick off and just talk about where you are over there on that sandbank, which Grenache seems to love so much.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, look, I guess the sandbank through there that you and I have spoken about is, look, it was formed, God knows how many million years ago. This was all underwater, so it's the alluvial wash off the eastern ridge just behind us, going up the hill to your place, basically, Jane.
That's Anguston, folks.
In Anguston, so it's, you know, it's just this patch of dirt that seems to work really well for Grenache. And, you know, you look at the best, I guess, some of the best known, you know, Southern Rhone Valley areas of Grenache, it's certainly on the sand. And I guess when my father bought the block with Mum in 1969, long before we knew of the quality of the vineyard, but the soil type, but, you know, it was Italian home back shed red winemaking. So that sandbank has just proven year in and year out through the droughts and the wet years that it just continues to perform. And it's that free draining soil, it's the cooling nights, you know, the maritime air for me doesn't suit Grenache. And, you know, the Grenaches that I like from around the world are usually settled in sand and usually quite a way away from the ocean. So
when your parents bought that vineyard, did you know the history of it? Did you know you were buying this plot of gold, essentially, with some of the oldest vineyard, the Grenache in the world?
Well, yes and no. I mean, Dad and Mum were looking for a site in the Barossa. Dad, I guess, managed pubs throughout Adelaide when he was a young man. Obviously, he was a migrant as well. So he was buying a lot of Barossa wine and trying to educate the city of Adelaide that table wine was not, I guess, the cheap plonk that, well, as they used to call it, the bums drink back in the day. Wasn't just fortified wine, you know, very English. So Dad was like, no, we drink wine with dinner, and was buying a lot probably from Roe Valley, from the Liebig family and Rolf Binder's mother and father, but loved the Barossa. And he found this patch of dirt and it ticked all the boxes. It had Grenache, Shiraz, some old Samelon as well, a 4-bedroom home, animal pens. It was the ethnic's dream, obviously, and it was far enough away from our relatives in McLaren Vale and other relatives in Mildura and so forth. So
it's perfect location.
Yeah,
it was going to make a good sausage factory.
Yeah, basically. So look, and at the time they knew it was old, but I guess in today's day we realise the beauty in old vine, whereas in those times they didn't. But my father certainly persisted when all of his friends from the valley said, Vince, you know, pull those old bastards out. You know, they're unproductive, they're bush vines on the ground. And Dad said, well, you know what? If I pull them out, I've got to plant something else. Mm. And at the end of the day, I guess because the ethnic community that he was still involved in and still is today, it was home shed winemaking. So when the fortified industry fell over in the 70s into the 80s, Dad still sold all of our, you know, Grenache to home winemakers. Most of the time vinegar it was turned into. So you imagine all this beautiful fruit getting turned into pretty average wine for over a decade in the city in back sheds of Adelaide. So, you know, humble beginnings. And then I sort of traced back as best as I could when I I guess, got a little older and was helping Dad more, and my siblings had gone off to Adelaide to uni, and just trying to get a better price per tonne for Dad and help the family. I was 15-ish, I think, then, just helping out where I could, and after school and weekends, you know, the things that you do as a family. And, you know, we just traced back the history, and I got hold of the neighbour who originally was the entire block, and it was his uncles, great uncles, who planted it. So we've got, you know, handwritten diaries of the Greats family, and saying their plant date, which is actually truly 1848. But we say first year of production is 1850. So yeah, as far as we know, it's the world's oldest continuously producing Grenache vineyard. So anyone that has a story can come at me with it, but you know, that's just how we roll the dice.
I mean, he potentially got it cheaper. It was like, oh, low yielding, old vines, mate, really.
Probably gonna have to rip them out.
Yeah. So he probably paid a hell of a lot less than young Shiraz vines.
It's the Italian negotiation.
True. Exactly. That's exactly, knowing you, Marco, it's exactly what I was thinking.
You can get everything for cash.
That's right. There's always a cash price.
And a sausage.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't open those tonight. We've just got them in the smokehouse right now.
Oh, stop it.
Sorry.
Do you want to just give us a bit of a thumbnail sketch of the difference between the two of? We've got the 19 Vincent
Yes.
Marco and the 13 1850. So do you want to just give us a bit of a thumbnail sketch?
Okay, well, I guess, look, it starts from a real simple basis. I guess I started the business 20 years ago, thereabouts, and I was solely making the 1850 Grenache. So, and realistically, it was a very high price back in the time when we released it in the world of Grenache and on the
$50. What a rip-off.
I know, how obscene. But, you know, at the end of the day, it was one of those things. We started to produce this wine. I was working in other wineries and traveling the world from time to time, making wine overseas. And I guess there came a point where the Vincent came along, and the Vincent was named after my father, who's alive and well. I basically was able to source 2 vineyards from family friends that would know it. They weren't really able to look after it anymore themselves. They didn't want to leave their family property. So we sort of took over management, and the Vincent was born. So that was the entry point to the flagship of our portfolio. So, and I spent a lot of time in the south of France making Grenache, and it's probably where I love Grenache from mostly, outside of our own backyard. And so to me, when I say this, people take this the wrong way. So I put these as my Côte de Rhône / Chateau Neuf, in the fact that the Vincent is a bright, everyday, house-drinking red style. That's what we do as a family. Whereas the 1850 is more the flagship sort of Chateau Neuf. That's the Friday night or Saturday. And when I say that, people go, oh, but it tastes nothing like that. And it's like, well, of course, you bloody idiot. We're on the other side of the planet. You know, but some people take it too literally.
Yeah.
And it's just my rendition of what those 2 wines are.
It represent.
One's for every day. It's bright, it's fresh, where the other one's got a bit more texture and fruity, secondary kind of flavours showing through. And it's, you know, for your slightly more solid dinner, but, you know, it goes pretty well with cheese, bread, and Italian homemade sausage. So,
why are we not having that, by the way? Anyway. Next time.
Just before you go,
speak to the poor guy in Sydney. He doesn't have any sausage here.
No.
Sausage free.
Before you go anywhere,
I kind of don't want to know about it, Angus.
Voila. There we go, Jane.
It's veal parmigiana time, and I've loaded it up with Barossa Smokehouse Butcher's ham.
Beautiful.
Veal, and Pete assures me that this was just over a year old, the beast. And I've loaded it up with my own tomato sauce, and Grenache loves tomato, it loves onion. And this is what we're putting into a big sandwich with some bruschetta after the show. So there you go, folks. Barossa Smokehouse Butchers, our sponsor in Angus.
No shameless plugs.
From our sponsors.
Yeah. Oh, hello.
It's our only sponsor.
Oh, just getting back to, talking about you starting out, Marco, with that one wine. Angus, you were right there with him, weren't you? I mean, you've known each other a really long time.
We have.
Can you talk us through his selling in technique back in those days?
It was, I think, do you know what? Marco was less confident in those days. He didn't say, "You're another stupid sommelier" or anything like that. He was nay, almost respectful.
I don't think we've seen that. Well,
no. It was early days. He'd literally just got off the plane. I worked very on the edge of the airport at the time, and Alex had brought him in to visit, and I ran a little posh wine club with old men who like to drink expensive wine, and he just said, "Here you go, try this." It was very straight up. There wasn't much story really. He certainly didn't bring a sausage along, which is now in retrospect is a little bit offensive.
It's all shades of wrong.
Yeah. But we just sat there, tasted a wine because he was bringing
just the one wine then.
He was bringing just the one wine. Time. It was 03, was it? No.
03/04, but we never sold 03 until
later. Yeah.
I've actually never sold the 03. It's only going to be released as a 20-year-old.
There we go. So was I the first person in Sydney to sell that wine?
You were one of the very first people. So unfortunately, you've known me all these years.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to see. It's come on. But yeah. I think the wine. I think old vine. Sometimes we talk up too much. I think some people, there's an assumption that old vine equals good wine.
Yep, I agree.
And it really depends on the philosophy of the vigneron.
And how you treat those vines. You've got to treat them a certain way to be able to produce quality wines like this.
Exactly. And I liked Marco's gait. I could just see he was straight up. There was going to be no rubbish. It was just like, here's the wine. You like it. If you don't, I'll find someone else, kind of thing.
Pretty much.
And I think we sold half a pallet of wine with an email, which was.
And that was your first Grenache.
First selling Grenache into those old men, who I probably shouldn't call them that. But they liked it, and a lot of those people probably still buy it.
And just thinking, that was some time ago now that you were doing that, and the Grenache has come a long way in the eyes of the consumer since then, and we're seeing this, it's really got a foothold now, and there are people that are really enjoying it. From your perspective, Angus, how do you see, how has it developed over time, and how have people embraced it? Because you'd obviously see a lot more of them now writing, and what are people interested in?
I think, for me, it's actually been at a winemaking level where people have the consumers were already there. There were already premium consumers there who want premium product. I just think Grenache winemakers like Marco with some international, when I came back from London in 2004, you'd go into a restaurant and there were like 5 international wines on the list. It was all negotiates. It was like Paul Roger, Hugel Riesling.
I was working for Negs then.
There we go. Fair Chablis. And that was an international list. Literally, people did not know those wines. Yeah. I came back from the UK and could not believe how little of that wine there was. And I think it took people drinking good Gigondas and good Chateau Neuf and good Côte d'Or and a range of them, not just Gigal, a range of them to say, okay, there is a style here. There's a style that we should be looking at, and winemakers, and there's a range of them. Marco's one of them. I think Marco's winemaking's got a lot better too, but which is natural. But I think I just remember those first Grenaches, they held no interest for me, not Marco's, but those first uber ripe McLaren Vale, taste like Redskins.
A little bit lolly-ish.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they tasted like. It was just this light, sweet, no tannins.
And full of rocket fuel.
Yeah, and high alcohol, and just no nuance to those wines. And I just think people have seen the value, and the wines are getting better and better and better. And regionally, like you've got Franklin River doing good Grenache. You've got Heathcote, You've got obviously Barossa, you've got McLaren Vale. It's so suited to global warming, it's so suited to hot, dry climates. But it's like the thing I love about Grenache most of all is it's like hot climate Pinot Noir, because it has a great Grenache with a bit of age, gets a bit of perfume to it, and it's not all about upfront fruit. It's about that savoury back palate. I think the best wines is, but it's taken winemakers a while to learn that. It's taken us all a while. That we're all a bit amateur in this, but it's been lovely to see people getting into it, and those uber ripe styles becoming less and less prevalent from in the old days where that was all it was. To be honest.
Funny you say that about Pinot, because people will often call it Barossa's Pinot Grenache. Because it does have that lighter style, and it is super approachable. But they are, I agree, I think there's a sophistication to them now that we've seen over the years, and people are making it not just as excess wine, they're actually really making Grenache now for the sake of making beautiful Grenache.
I think also Grenache, you need to be a sophisticated drinker and winemaker to look behind the curtains kind of thing, I guess. Like Grenache, great Grenache delivers on the back palate. It's very easy. If you're a taster who just looks at front fruit and just goes, and Shiraz and Pinot and most great varieties are front of house. And you kind of go, bang, front of house. Yep, I get that. Grenache, you can easily miss a really good Grenache if you're not thinking about back palate and how the wine works together. And I just think we are, there is so much opportunity with Grenache in this country. There are going to be so many sites. We're going to be forced into it a little bit with global warming, I think. But it's just, we can really take people on a really cool wine journey with Grenache.
It's interesting you say that, because I'd love to hear both of your boys' comments on something that we've seen emerge in the last sort of 18 months, 2 years in the Valley, and that's that Grenache Mataro blending. So I'd love to hear what you think about that, because there's some absolutely cracking Grenache Mataro, not Mataro Grenache so much, but Grenache with a dash of Mataro.
So Marco, I'll let you take the lead on this one.
I'm the worst person to ask, to be honest, because I'm such a purist. I don't blend. I like my straight varietals. Everyone's always questioned me for years, why don't you make a GSM blend? Because I make a Shiraz and obviously a Mataro. And maybe this is my salesman's hat, I just say, buy a bottle of each and you can make your bloody own.
Well played.
I just like them on their own, I think. And, obviously you guys touching on the Pinot thing. And look, I love Grenache because it delivers so much more than 90% of the time what Pinot will ever deliver. Yeah. And that's what I love the most about it, is it does get affiliated to that. But, I just love it on its own. I mean, I love Mataro on its own because I like to see the true characters of each and every flavour. But I understand why you would do it, because they do hold hands. It's a bit like pork and fennel. They hold hands beautifully together.
That's a good one. It's a good analogy.
I get it, and it makes sense. But I guess when I started this journey, for me, it was all about the blend, because often I was told, don't make Grenache in the style that you're making. By old school wine people and some of them were, trying to give me guidance and say, look, maybe you should think about this as a business opportunity, because it's going to be really tough, to make this sort of style in a time where, like Angus discussed, big, broody, alcoholic, juby, over the top. It's like, it's not bloody Shiraz. Make it the way it should be. So I'm the wrong person to ask. I get it, but I love them on their own.
but you're also making a straight Mataro, and that's really emerging as almost a third string for the Barossa Bow too.
Yes,
which is nice.
It's a variety like Grenache that retains. It uses its calcium and bits through the summer period that are just. You can find a Mataro and Grenache vineyard in the middle of a heat wave. You can drive through the Barossa and go, Grenache or Mataro up on that hill, because it's the only varieties that are sitting up there, green, lush,
happy.
just bring it on, I'm okay. And everything else has kind of just dropped its head and looking a bit sorry for itself. Yeah.
We, quite by accident, had the first season of this show was centred a lot around Mataro. We didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. Angus, what do you think? You know, can you answer Jane's thoughts there?
I think that I'm still waiting for that Australian Mataro that blows my socks off.
Okay.
To be honest, I'm still. I think there's certainly. I think it's maybe 5 years behind with Grenache is or something like that. Like I think I love that skunky Grenache edge. Like I love that dirty animal-y edge of Mataro. Like I really think that's, you know, I really think that's very attractive. And
we're starting to see a very interesting part of your personality.
We are. It's quite well known, to be honest. But Mataro, I think that I mean obviously Wendouree Shiraz Mataro is a cracking wine, and that's my favourite of the lot of those wines because of that beautiful fruit, that beautiful Shiraz fruit, combined with that animal edge, that rustic edge, and I really like that. And I think that's a lovely counterpoint to the sweetness of the Shiraz in that particular wine. I think that whether it's, I think that the Barossa can be a region that it doesn't need to be a leader in Shiraz Grenache blends or Shiraz Mataro blends, or I think each of those can be a piece of the puzzle. I don't know if one will be better. I mean, I was tasting Marco's Mataro just before I came on here. I love that juicy acidity in that wine. I love that in a vintage it keeps its acidity. That could be in a future frame. That pH controller to some extent might be really something very useful for Mataro. But there's not much. Good. There's not much though, is there? That's good. That's a little bit of the problem with Mataro. It's really little tiny parcels here and there. You know, it was never the leading variety planted. It was always a bit of an afterthought. So it probably
bridesmaid.
Exactly. Probably commercially, it probably will never be big news.
Might be one of the attendants.
Yeah.
You just touched on acidity there, and I was just trying that Vincent wine, the Vincent Grenache. I love that bright acidity that's in that wine, which makes it, you know, such an approachable food pairing wine. What can you talk us through quickly any of the sort of winemaking that allowed you to keep that beautiful fruit, but also that lovely line of acidity?
Well, look, there's a couple of simple ways to look at it, and I don't want to get too technical or cork-dorky, but I guess for me, it's a clash of cultures, my wines. So I'm very much first-generation Australian, so I'm Italian, Australian, Australian, Italian. So I love acidity in my wines because it matches what I eat every day. So pasta and bits and pieces, lots of olive oil. So the acidity is certainly something, but I am Australian, so there's a cleanliness to the wines, and I spent a lot of time in the south of France, so I love that savoury aspect of that style. So it's a bit of a clash of cultures, but I also do things differently than what I did back when I first met Angus, and the fact that we do pick a third of this very underripe, and that retains so much bright acidity and, you know, a different tannin profile, but it also allows you to have more consistency over single vineyard wines. That allows us to be a bit more consistent out there for, I guess, the consumer. We err on the side of, for a lack of better words, natural, because we don't add anything really to our wines. But I do care for them, and I want them to become in people's homes, and that people are happy to part with their hard-earned dollars to drink our bottle of wine, and I want them to have an enjoyable experience. But that's sort of goes back to what you were saying about $70 price point. I do believe that wine should be affordable for most people. So they're all the things that come together. Sorry, I'm being very ethnic with my hands.
That's okay, mate.
That's amazing. We love it.
I get that.
My 4-year-old daughter is doing the same these days, so it's quite amusing. But you know, so look, it's all part of it. For me, it's the way we eat or the way we drink. It's what for me, what retains longevity in a wine, it's not just about the larger tannins, because I've for too long had read articles on these monstrous wines that are going to live for 20 years, and then you drink them 5 years in and it's like, I should have drank this 2 years ago because it's garbage now. The refinement of things like Grenache and the acidity and fine profile tannin is what gives them the longevity. So I often find it comical to read such things, but it's all, for me, the acidity in the backbone is what keeps a wine a lot longer lived in your cellar.
I love that. And speaking of age, that 1850 is released with age on it, right? So we're drinking the 2013, which I believe is all sold out now.
Yes, it's currently sold out. Waiting for labels to bottle the 14. So
nice.
That's a few weeks away, hopefully 6 to 8 weeks. We can get some labels. But look, I like to release it aged. In a time when I guess, started selling Grenache, I think people weren't aging Grenache, and I still hear it regularly. You know, we do little fact-finding missions, and we go down to the dirty south and try some wines. And
don't talk about Melbourne that way.
That's south.
Talking about the Vale.
Oh,
yeah. So you know, and I love hearing people say, "Oh, Grenache is a drink now kind of wine," and I struggle to hear that, and because it's not. And I look at, you know, some of the best aging wines in the world, which are obviously from the south of France and things like Burgundy and places like that. And that's all about refinement. And Grenache certainly will hold its own. And I've been fortunate enough with Jeremy Holmes from Door to Door and people like that, and Grant Dixon, to be privileged enough to open wines that are, you know, well beyond my age and almost to my father's age, and have some of these wines and just go, jeepers, this is still, you know, amazing and just looking bright and fruitful. And I guess you have to have an appreciation for old wine for a start, but, you know, these are the things that can age beautifully. And I've seen probably more Grenache and Pinot age better than many other varieties out there. And I don't ever want to slag anyone off, but it's certainly what I think, you know, is what's beautiful about the aging process of these wines.
What I particularly like about Marco's philosophy on this is it is a great personal belief in the integrity of those wines. There's a lot of winemakers who,
that's all I've got.
And sausage.
We're going to stop there. But I think, literally, like so many winemakers, I think, just are like, I just want this off my books, literally, and not necessarily they don't believe in it, but they commercially are like, you know, I've got to move this because I want my distributor to have it, or I want the consumers. Whereas I think, I mean, literally, think about it. Who else in this country releases 7-year-old wines? Okay, Penfolds with special bins. They're not 7 years old. They're like 2000. They're like 4 or 5 years old. Hill of Grace is 5. No,
it is a very.
There's a handful.
There is a handful, but and I guess for those who don't quite understand that is a huge piece of capital to be sitting under you, Marco. So
it was a very long and slow process, I can assure you.
Yeah,
I mean, how much of that 2003 have you got in the shed?
Not a lot left. So we drank a heap of it. Unfortunately, my wife has never tried vintage 2002, which I only have 6 bottles left of.
That's a nice vintage.
We drank all of it as a family, because it's kind of, you know, your first couple of wines. We'll just drink it all.
Oh, you've got 6 bottles left.
Yeah, so we'll open that when it's 20 years of age. So the 2003 we've never released to the public.
Yeah.
I'm going to release every vintage of the 1850 that I've ever made. I've retained more than a pallet to release as a 10-year-old, but also as a 20-year-old. So,
oh, nice.
My accountant sometimes thinks I'm a little batshit crazy, but I had a vision of what I wanted for the long term. And for me, this isn't about, I guess, me. It's about my family, as my family who they are. But it's also the legacy that I want to be able to pass to my children. And hopefully that's if they want it. Whether or not my girls do, I don't know. But it's the legacy that I want for them. So the age thing, and to change a personality or a wine drinking culture in Australia was my main aim. And I'm nowhere near that, but what I'm trying to say is I didn't like the disbelief of Grenache, and my father made it for us as a family. And I drank wines that he had made that were 20 years old and just went, holy crap, this is amazing. Yeah, look, they were bottled in flagons by washing them and screwing them on by hand. So sometimes they weren't perfect. But the ones that were like, my God, this is like the most amazing thing in the world. And it's like drinking Chateau Ras. I love drinking it. A lot of bad bottles to get that one amazing bottle. So, you know, that's where I'm at.
But Grenache does have that kind of nature about it that it tends to prop and hold, where it doesn't change terribly much over a really long period of time. It doesn't have those specific kind of development of secondary characters. It kind of props and holds, and it does. It's not unusual to see something that's 10 years old with that zippy lift acid sort of fresh.
Jane, I 100% agree. I would not have picked this as being a 2013 vintage. I mean, it is. The colour is still really vibrant. The acidity is still really strong. It's a fabulous example.
Well, if you don't have much colour to start with, you don't have much to lose.
Sure. Well, it's holding on really well. I mean, I think that's extraordinary for, you know.
I know exactly how you feel. I'm the same way with credibility, mate.
Management of expectations, Jane. If you don't have a lot, you don't have a lot to lose.
Correct. Yeah, but the beautiful thing
look,
about
Angus has known me long enough to know some of my ins and outs of truth. And you know, at the end of the day, I never stray away from what my wine belief is. My belief of others, and I guess the social media world of stupidity out there at times, and that annoys me, but it's always about the product and what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to leave behind as a legacy. And Angus has seen that for years with me and my frustrations, but
one of my earlobes is like falling off with Marco's frustrations on the phone. But I think, but one thing, like, you know what, Marco's been through the bloody ringer on this project. Like I remember, like, I was one of the ones going, mate, I love the $50 stuff. We can sell that, but do you want to do something cheaper? Like, surely someone wants to buy cheaper wine. He's like, nah, no one. But I mean, you know, it's hard to explain to people how slow this bloody road has been for Marco. Like, it seriously has been. I mean, supermarkets wouldn't have picked you up for
10 years.
Yeah, basically.
But that's the turtle and the hare, right? Like, I'd much rather have the turtle's wine than the hare's wine.
There's no doubt, but Grenache, selling Grenache up until 2015, so we're talking the first 10 years of Marco's business. It's only been the last third that it's become easier. So Grenache, so Marco, he's selling Grenache. It's $50. You know, and he can be a bit grumpy sometimes. Like, he's absolutely up against it. But that belief that I talked about before in terms of the investment of stock, to actually age it, the price point that it's at. I think there are some good lessons for young winemakers out there, Marco.
Don't do what I did.
No, 100% do exactly what you did.
No, you got to take
there's no easy games.
You got to take your hat off to them, you know, because if you go out there come winter time, there they are out there goblet pruning the old vines. I've pulled in there many times to show people what genuine goblet pruned basket vines look like. No, I take my hat off to them. Marco, just talk about how the vines don't change their yield much regardless of the vintage. That's really interesting.
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess first and foremost, this was a fight that my father took on when he took the property on. So I'm only the next person trying to push that same wheelbarrow as such. But The vineyard itself, we are grape growers at the end of the day, and a lot of people, we talk about, you know, winemakers and vineyards, but sometimes for me, I find a real disconnect between the two. So our vineyard, for me, it's all about having the best possible fruit that you can possibly have to make the best possible wine. I'm not a believer in these vineyards that are, I guess, struggling for life to make concentrated wine, because anything that's struggling for life doesn't make a long life wine. And everything that I do is about trying to make longevity in our wines. So I give them every bit of hope and help that they can possibly get without trying to overfeed them, but to care for them, because they're just, the best way to describe it, it's like your grandparents. You want to keep them going as long as possible in the best condition that they are. So that is exactly what these old vines are. But when it comes to making wine from that, if you have a happy, healthy vineyard that's not overcropping because you're pushing it, but it's happy to grow what it wants to grow, it makes the best possible wine. So as a winemaker, I'll say it openly, I don't think I'm the best winemaker, but I hold my head sort of high on the things that I do in the vineyard, because if I can get that right, my job is not to stuff it up in the winery. And that's it. That's all I've got to do. So
that's
what it's all about.
And talking about how Marco does that, like if anyone goes in his vineyard that he doesn't know, he will hunt them down.
Yeah,
like genuinely,
I've heard that.
I'm surprised no one's been shot in that.
Well, they've been shot
vineyard,
at.
So,
Shot at.
But Marco
you need to work on your aim, Marco.
Marco does the pruning of those old bastards himself.
Yeah,
He
right.
won't let anyone else touch
Well,
them. I remember walking through
anymore.
it, and he was like looking at me like some dirty Sydney bloke's gonna like trip over my vine. He was
I have a full-time workman these days, and he prunes with me, and he's become a very good pruner. But he's never pruned. He'd never worked in viticulture until I employed him. So he was the best canvas to work with.
Totally. He's got your technique and no one else's.
How long was his apprenticeship before he was allowed in the vineyard by him?
Oh, we pruned some other blocks first, and I kept coaching him every cut.
Was it a 5-year kind of apprenticeship?
No, it wasn't like mine. It wasn't like mine with my father's. No.
No.
No, but you don't want any of that city boy taint anyway.
No. Exactly. You don't want your Grenache vines getting a bad case of COVID, do you?
No, definitely not. So,
or whatever happens in Newtown, you don't want them getting that stuff.
That's true. That's true. I've only visited you once at home, and that was enough.
Well, maybe Angus, one day we'll be able to get you back out here.
Look, my last trip was going to be in the week those Americans turned up. Like the flights were booked. I booked the pub to do a little presentation, and had to pull the plug. Thank you.
Last trip was having lunch with you actually in Sydney, Angus. That's the last time I got on the plane.
It was. I know. Look, I know you people over there will want us back. Just might be a while.
Yeah. Well, the last time you were here, Angus, my daughter doesn't warm to men very nicely, and you're the first male she's just openly hugged and had a cuddle with. So you can't be all bad.
No.
Can't be all bad.
Yeah,
well,
it was a lollipop.
Yeah.
Hey, talking about things that aren't all bad, we've heard on the Jungle Drums, Marco, that your mum is making limoncello to die for.
Yes, it is for personal home remedy consumption at this stage.
Can we trade? Can we?
Look, Jane, you know my shed is always open to you, and it's never been a better time to drink something rather warming to the soul at this time of the year in the Barossa. Yes, it is pretty yummy. It goes back many generations on my mother's side of the family. So I guess Dad's family is all sort of small goods, grapes, wine, and I'm 9th generation on that side. Mum's family's kind of like the 7th generation of cooks. So the recipe's quite old, but
what a family to be in. That's my ultimate, my nirvana.
Can we do a postscript to this event where we do and lastly we have the limoncello.
Yes, I think we need to go again.
Yeah, send me something.
You're like season 4, Jane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the limoncello episode.
I think we might bring
Oh.
Marco and Angus back, and let's do the Malbec and limoncello, eh?
Well, I think that's more than plausible.
Oh, good as gold.
So we'll call that a yes, Jane.
Yeah, that's it.
I know. I want to ask some questions now. So,
Jane.
Jane, Grenache. I mean, obviously your history and you've seen a hell of a lot of wines in the Barossa and that kind of thing. How does it fit for you? I mean, how does it feel for you seeing where Grenache has got, and where do you think it can go?
Well, definitely when I first got to the Valley in '83, I was still a student at Roseworthy. Shiraz was $200 a tonne, and there was still quite a bit being made into vintage port. And Grenache was definitely the poor relation. However, there was a young fella at Peter Lehman's Masterson Winery, who was the cellar foreman at the time, Graham Melton, and
I thought there may have been the M word in there.
Yeah, PL said, "You don't really look like a Graham, you look like a Charlie, so you're going to be Charlie from now on." And Charlie Melton was really the first time I saw Flash Grenache.
Yeah.
And when I saw Flash Grenache, I really liked it. I got to work for Rob O'Callaghan for 3 years, and he'd gone out and saved quite a bit of fruit at the vine pool. And obviously, fortunately for us, Marco's dad resisted the vine pool. And so now we've got the fruit to work with. And it's really interesting to hear Marco run himself down and say he's not much of a winemaker, but we've got great fruit to work with if we get it right. Yep. And people like Marco, people like Charlie are doing extraordinary things with Grenache. And now we've got that next generation like Soul Growers, like Travis Earth, who's taking Krondorf Road Grenache, which is just up the road from Charlie, and turning it into really, really lovely stuff. You can buy it any night of the week at the Greenock pub. They go through buckets of it. And I think
literally
for a lot of
buckets.
Yeah, buckets. And I think for a lot of people, it's still a bit of a discovery, Angus.
Yeah.
For us, we've kind of always known, because we've had great tawnies, great rubies, and we've also had, like Marco said, the backyard wine, because there's always someone making, a couple of tons of Grenache just to drink. Of course, then we went through the Grenache Rosé thing, and fortunately, we're not putting terribly much Grenache that way anymore. But what I'm finding is it's unashamedly middleweight. It loves Mediterranean food. And if you're in Melbourne, I know Melbourne's a dirty word at the minute, but if you go to Sydney Road in Melbourne, all those Turkish places, all those Greek places, it just loves the food.
Yeah.
What about when you're on the plane, when you're flying around, doing your international stuff, how was Grenache perceived?
Oh, very much as a poor relation. And, the number of times you have people saying, "Oh, I really love Chateau Neuf de Pape, but I wouldn't drink that Grenache."
I love that.
Exactly.
There was this weird disconnect there, but in all honesty, we in America, we started taking it. We started dropping into barbecue places and getting a couple of pounds of brisket, a couple of pounds of jalapeno sausage, and we'd take that to the tastings and get people to try it. And the response was just extraordinary. And it was just, and I think for me, in places like America, even in England, with the resurgence of
good climate for a bit of Grenache action. Côte d'Arone's the biggest, the biggest selling, region in England.
Well, England's had a massive renaissance in the last 4 or 5 years with bespoke sausages, pork pies, all that really lovely nostalgia food.
Yep.
And so Grenache just hits the mark.
Yep.
So long answer to a short question, plus all that charcuterie. I mean, how many restaurants these days are making their own fennel-laced salamis and things like that? Grenache comes to town.
Yep.
It cuts through confit duck and Peking duck like a knife through hot butter. So
I think it'll be lovely to see our regional organisations and national organisations make Grenache an absolute highlight.
But then the price will go up, and I don't want that because I feel like a lush tonight because I'm just nailing these wines.
We've been talking while you weren't on camera. We've been saying that, you know.
But here's the thing.
If I can look at the playback of me just going do, but they are so approachable. They're so food friendly, and you can drink them all year round.
But here's the thing, Angus. You're the man who will probably see more Grenaches than I would. There's quite a bit that sits in that $20 to $30 bottle price bracket that is just beautiful fruit. And do you not think that that's just like a whole new world on its own? You know.
I absolutely agree, and I think we've, you know, Barossa Shiraz and Penfolds and all that kind of thing. Inevitably, that's taken the oxygen. And it's done a fantastic job for such a long time.
Yeah,
and there's no, let's be honest, there's no problem with that because Barossa Shiraz is the wine that any international person knows, and we shouldn't take away from that. We shouldn't be scared of that. But I just think where we're going as a country is about trying to be forward, not trying to live on what we've done before. But when we've done it with Pinot, we've done it with Chardonnay, particularly. I think modern Australian Chardonnay, you can speak to people globally and they will know that wine style. So we've been able to say, hey, we've modernised. This is what we're doing. I think Grenache is just such a piece of that story. And with climate change, it's going to be Grenache. We're going to have Tassie Grenache next year.
We need things that
the flat earthers here.
We need things that can cope with the heat.
Absolutely. And Grenache is. I mean, like Marco said, you know, those sandy soils, those gallets, those big rocks that you get in Shattered Earth, those crappy soils, that's what makes great wine, and we've got plenty of that.
We do. That. You know, we're lucky in Australia. We probably have the best $20 to $30 bracket anywhere in the world when it comes to wine. We're super spoiled. We really are. I mean, the Vinny for me is hands down an easy win at 25, and I do get in a lot of trouble from other producers. Put your price up; it's too cheap. And I look at it as the perfect example. Yeah, it is cheap, but I'd rather have an empty shed than a full shed. And maybe some of theirs is sometimes a little too expensive.
Always better to over-deliver than under-deliver.
And nothing wrong with sold out either.
No, sold out's a good thing.
No, so on that, oh, sorry, Angus, you go.
I was just going to say, Jane, the recent Yalumba Bushfire Grenache, Marco and I both think is a cracking little wine.
Oh, look,
always been a cracker.
Yeah, I think it stepped up a bit, though. I think it was a bit dubier in the past. I think now we're getting a bit more broody and a bit more of that savouriness and just a lovely little wine.
There's a bit more of that back palate and texture. It's just not all up front like you were talking about earlier. It's just a bit more packaged. It's lovely.
Well, I think it comes from that vineyard a quarter mile down the road from you, Marco. Yep. You know, that other part of the old Greats block. You know, they've got those vines that are between 1960 and 1940 planted. That's what's coming off of there.
Yeah.
So no, it worked for me. That's what I took. That's what I've been winning hearts and palates with in Canada and America over the last 3 or 4 years. So no, it's a fantastic workhorse.
And that'd be the same clone too, because they're originally two brothers, so they planted the entire block through there.
Oh, there you go. Speaking of sold out, so that 1850 is sold out. The Vincent is available of the 2019.
Look, it is. You will find the 13 in some bottle shops and stuff around the country. So it's all out there. Wherever it is, the left is.
Yeah. But for our very discerning, what was I drinking followers, we like to give them inside scoopage, you see. Yes. And my suggestion to them is then sign up to the database.
Look, if they do, they won't certainly get harassed by me. We sent out our first email just as COVID hit for the first time in a decade.
Marco and I have only been talking about e-commerce for 10 years. But,
that's excellent.
We finally got, but he did
so
stop.
One a decade.
He stopped the pigeons though, which I think was.
I have let go of the pigeons.
We were really happy that he stopped.
He wasn't shooting them down. He's got
they're quite
terrible aim.
expensive. Pigeons are quite expensive compared to email.
Dad's
Hey,
probably
look, I had to
put them
get
on the
my wife to
barbecue.
set this up
Oh, excellent.
because I
That
had
is
no
excellent.
idea.
Well, that is good to know. But people, you know, this is one of those circumstances where there is limited volume of this 1850 around. So if you're smart and you want to show off to your friends.
You can use Google as well. Google.
Yes.
You can use Google.
Just
make sure you sign up because you will hear about it first. You will know when it's available. And we always like to encourage you to go direct to our wineries. So just ring Marco. He's obviously a pleasure every day of the week to talk to. And he's a really bad shot. So you can...
Just drive, whatever, if you want to buy wine, drive into the vineyard with a large Land Cruiser and he'll come out with a bunch of flowers.
Whether you come in with a wallet full of cash, we'll always accept you.
There you go.
Special price.
But no, if you sign up to the website, we are, well, my wife is the smarts behind that side of things.
Excellent.
Because I'm sort of smart like sheep, strong like tractor situation. So, look, she'll be putting out soon.
That's excellent.
We're about to release a fortified Semillon that's 11 years old. I actually have my late father-in-law's muscat from 1977. Hopefully some limoncello in the near future, but a very special twin pack of wines named after my daughters. That's it's actually about to be bottled and it's 2010. So
what's that called?
Special.
What's that one called? What's that one going to be called?
One
Marco?
will be called Maya and one will be called Ella. So named after my girls. Yes, very limited. There's only about 80 twin bottle packs available.
One thing, talk about 1850. Marco has 1850 Semillon as well.
And Shiraz.
And the current vintage is a little belter.
Oh, look, there's so much to explore under this brand, which is amazing. And you have done a stellar effort in pioneering that Grenache and staying true to what you wanted to create. And we all thank you for that. And absolutely thank you for sharing your wines with us tonight. And we've gone on the longest show we've ever done of 1 hour and 6 minutes, which is mental.
As Marco and I talked earlier, we can talk as long as we need to talk for.
I'd like to keep talking. I don't know if we're done, Jane. What are we doing?
Well, I think we get the boys back.
Yes.
I think we should get the boys back.
We talk about some Malbec. We talk about some fortified Semillon.
Semillon, straight the dry Semillon.
Yeah.
The Hunter Valley is shaking.
Oh, you've got one too.
Yes.
Right.
This is the Maya.
Hi.
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 She's good. How are you?
You're an Instagram star now.
Oh.
Oh, that's so pretty.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, you can teach me how to do that. I get it wrong all the time.
She's showing the new hair clip. So
Oh, it's very pretty.
yeah. So she's the Grenache in the new package. And there's the other one too.
Oh,
So
there's
I've got
the
all
other
of
one.
them in here.
He's the twin pack right now.
You know what? He's just trying to sell wine, you know. He's just trying
Finally.
to look like the family, man. Look
Yeah,
how
they
nice.
are.
Oh, look at that.
I'm nice, Marco. Hi.
Hi.
Is it?
Yeah, this is Ella and this is Maya. So,
Is that the twin?
Ella?
How much for the twin pack?
oh, if you have to ask, it's probably too much.
Oh, you, my friend, are
Hi,
made for
Annie.
the camera.
Hi, Annie.
That is excellent.
Hi. The whole family.
This is
That's the quietest they've been all day. So to keep them, if they've been that quiet for that long, it's an amazing
Gotta give
thing.
them that lollipop.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. I'm surprised the boy version of my twin girl hasn't come in yet.
kind of like Sesame Street for grown-ups here.
Yeah.
We're so off.
Yeah.
But thank you.
I can bring mine in with the mask on if you want.
Oh,
So you're definitely going to come back then? We'll talk about Malbec, talk about limoncello, talk about the 2014, maybe?
Sausage.
1850.
Well, I'll tell you what, Janie, how about the next time we do this, we'll do it from my shed together and you can taste and drink and eat with me.
Okay, cool. I'm free that day.
Yeah, I have nothing on that day.
Free.
I'll just try and break regulations, mate. I'll just try and drive. I'll go the off the road.
You just slide on in.
I know, they're not.
I like it.
Magic.
Yeah,
No, that's a date.
The way our seasons are being packed at the moment, Angus, it won't be until next year anyway, because we are jam-packed. And I did jump the gun last week and say we'd have an announcement this week for what was I drinking, but it's actually going to be next week.
Yeah. Big news. Big news.
No. Medium news.
Yeah. Aubert de Villan from Romany Conti has said, please, I want to be on your show.
I want to come on your show.
Yeah. It's so amazing.
It's only human.
Yeah.
That's true. But I would like to say thank you for inviting me along to share part of our story and tell you a bit about what we're doing. So I thank you guys very much. And it's always nice to talk to you, Angus.
You call me anyway.
We've got Adam Dromey also watching along on Facebook, and he
from
wants
Los
to play
Angeles
for that tasting as well. So,
well, that's a big shout out to Adam Dromey, because he's been a massive flag waver for Australian wines in Los Angeles and right up and down the west coast of the US. So thanks, Adam.
Good to have you watching. Angus, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Lovely to see your beautiful face.
Thank you very much for having me. Anytime. Not many dates going on at the moment, so anytime you need me, good chance I'll be in this office.
We've got to do as much as we can while all these people are stuck indoors.
Yeah.
It could be a while.
It might be a while.
But thank you, Marco, also.
Yes.
These wines are looking super smart. High five.
I mean, I've drunk a lot of these.
Yeah,
they go okay.
They do go okay. They do go. But also, I think the value of these wines is epic. The Vincent, has been a raging success for you because...
I don't think I said the price of that. $25 for the Vincent. I mean, that's just hands down.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? $25. Amazing.
I think, and also there's actually structure to that wine. Like there's some the thing I really like about that wine, you've got that pretty Grenache fruit, you've got some savory personality, but underneath there's a fair whack of suddenly. Yep. There's some junk in the trunk in that particular wine, to use a terrible expression. But there really is. You taste it and you kind of, what's going on here? And then suddenly, bang, I've got tannin. And the length on that wine, it just stings along. It's a 10-year. It's a cheeky 10-year Grenache.
Yeah, it's the drinky thinky wine. If you just want to drink it, happy days. But if you want to sit there and sort of pick it apart a bit, there's stuff to go on.
Yeah, there is.
There is more to it.
That's a good way to describe that.
Yeah, but it's 1906 and 1901 planting, so you're getting a lot of value for $25.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I drink a lot of it. It's okay.
Well, this is your Cote d'Aron, right? This is your weeknight.
Every
I actually like that description. It's good.
But there's no Cote d'Aron 100-year-old Grenache vineyards.
No, and Cote d'Aron is also typically blended too. So, and this is straight Grenache. So
yeah. I just meant it in the drinkability
Correct.
of the day.
This is us not taking it literally.
Yeah. But no, thank you kindly. So I appreciate
Beautiful.
it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We'll see you at the next time we see you.
See you in season 4.
Thanks, Jane.
Pleasure, guys.
See you.
Take care, guys.
You too.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Ciao.
Cheers.
Good night.
Bye.
See ya.